One of the biggest movies of the Warner Bros. Barbie, featuring very favorite Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, was banned in Vietnam for a very cartoonish yet disputed representation. K-pop group Blackpink, Abominable by DreamWorks, Pine Gap, Put Your Head on My Shoulder have all landed in trouble for their association with a very disputed and contested international space in South China Sea, the Nine-Line. Beyond entertainment, the region of Nine-Line recently unfolded a high drama on June 17 when more than 8 Chinese Coast Guards charged and rammed 2 Philippine Navy boats. The Chinese personnel boarded and damaged the Philippine vessels, raising concerns of a full-blown conflict. 2 days after the clash, Manila filed a submission to the UN body asking for the recognition of the outer limits of its continental seabed in parts of the disputed waterway called the Nine-Line. So, what is this Nine-Line? Before moving on, let's first have a background look of the location and why it's an area of high international geopolitical contest. So if you are preparing for APSC, do not forget to like and subscribe. The South China Sea. The South China Sea, located south of mainland China, is bordered by Brunei, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Taiwan and Vietnam. The region is highly valuable for its substantial oil and natural gas reserves. An estimate by United States Energy Information Administration says the region could contain 11 billion barrels of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Major islands in the region like the Spratly and Paracel offer rich resources and a major fishing hub. Almost half of world's fishing vessels operate in these areas. The South China Sea also serves as a major trade route with more than 21% of global trade passes through this area, which makes South China Sea one of the crucial locations of the global economy. The Nine-Line. The Nine-Line, also known as 11-Line, is a U-shaped line in the South China Sea. The term Nine-Line is mostly used in political discussions to refer to visual representation of Chinese claims over disputed regions of South China Sea. If you look at the map, the line comprises 9 dashes, which extends hundreds of miles south and east from its southern province, Henan. This line encompasses almost 90% of the South China Sea, including areas like the Scarborough Shoal and the Second Thomas Shoal, despite being far from the Chinese mainland and close to Philippines, Malaysia and Vietnam. History of the Nine-Line. According to the book Asia's Cauldron by Robert D. Kaplan, the origins of the Nine-Line can be traced back to the official maps presented by the National Kuomintang, also known as the Chinese Nationalist Party, during World War II. The Nine-Line was originally 11-line and was etched by a Chinese geographer named Yang Yurin. Till 1947, Yang was able to officially name each and every rock and reef and refer to the territory as South China Sea Islands. In 1949, when Mao Zedong's communist forces defeated the Kuomintang, they fled and relocated to Taiwan. Eventually, in 1952, Mao gave up the claims over Gulf of Tonkin over conflict with Vietnam, and a revised map with 9 dashes became a political talk. Start of the dispute. After Second World War, when Japan renounced all claims over the Spratly Island after its defeat, it signed the San Francisco Treaty in 1951. But the treaty failed to stipulate terms of possession of the Spratly Island. The island, which consists of a chain of 200 coral reefs and seamounts, is rich in oil and natural resources, and it started attracting claimants since mid-1970s when countries in South China Sea began extracting resources from the seabed contiguous to the exclusive economic zones. China's claims over Nine-Line. China has argued its territorial claims over South China Sea based on their own historical narrative. Some Chinese analysts even say that islands in the South China Sea were first discovered by China's Han Dynasty. Chinese claims over Scarborough Shoal rest on its historical claims dating back to the Song Dynasty. Similarly, some Chinese scholars say that Chinese mission in the 3rd century to Cambodia made accounts of the Paracels and the Spratlys. But many historians would know that sea exploration under the Ming dynasty till 17th century was very limited, and so there aren't much cartographic evidence of China's historical claims. The Qing dynasty, which replaced the Ming dynasty, only showed South China Sea as a small lake. United Nations Convention on Law of Sea and South China Sea Dispute. United Nations Convention on Law of Sea was adopted in 1982 as a medium to harmonize interests between coastal regions, delineation of maritime zones, and protection of navigational rights. In 2013, the Republic of Philippines introduced arbitral proceedings against People's Republic of China in International Court of Justice under United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. Philippines allege that certain claims of China over South China Sea is in violation of the convention. Philippines stated that China's activities in the Scarborough Shoal is violating the convention because Scarborough Shoal lies within the exclusive economic zone of Philippines. In 2016, the tribunal ruled in favor of Philippines, but China refused to accept the judgment. Clashes along the 9-dash line. Apart from the recent clash between China and Philippines, in June 2019, Manila accused a Chinese trawler of ramming a Filipino fishing boat with 22 people on board. The Filipinos were rescued later by the Vietnamese. In May 2014, the introduction by China of a drilling rig into waters near the Paracel Island led to multiple collisions between Vietnamese and Chinese ships. Unverified claims that the Chinese Navy sabotaged 2 Vietnamese exploration operations in late 2012 led to large anti-China protests on Vietnam Street. Other claims over South China Sea. China and 4 ASEAN states, Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines and Vietnam, all laid claim on the occupied part of the island in the South China Sea. Vietnam says that it has actively ruled over the occupied Paracels and the Spratlys since the 17th century and has the documents to prove it. The other major claimant to the area is the Philippines, which invokes its geographical proximity to the Spratly Island as the main basis of its claim for part of the grouping. Malaysia and Brunei also lay claim to the territory in the South China Sea that they say fall within their exclusive economic zone as defined by United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Conclusion. The disputes over South China Sea cannot be overlooked for sure. Many attempts have been made by ASEAN states to tackle the dispute in a more localized manner. ASEAN's 2002 declaration in fact supports the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, signed by Beijing in 1997, which called for the peaceful resolution of conflicts in the South China Sea. Unfortunately, ASEAN's decision-making process depends on consensus among its members, an increasingly difficult task when most of its members are entirely dependent on China for their development and trade. Cambodia and Laos, for example, have decided to stay out of this dispute because of their almost total reliance on a smooth Chinese partnership officially supporting China's claims. Simply put, China is ASEAN's largest trading partner, because of which the issue has always remained persistent through decades.